Each week, nearly a dozen movies are released theatrically. 40 films a month, more than 400 a year. That's a plethora of cinema. Too much cinema. You'd have to be an addict to see all that. But don't fret, we've got you covered. This is CinemAddicts.
Hey guys, what's up? It's Greg Srisavasdi with the CinemAddicts podcast. This is CinemAddicts episode 360. We're covering movies that are coming out for the week of August 21st, 2026. Eric and I, earlier in the week, covered several of these movies. And then now, the second episode will cover the rest of the movies that me, Bruce, and Eric got to in the aggregate. Bruce Purkey has reviews of the documentary Learning to Fly. He also has his take on the MUBI release, Rosbush Pruning. Check that movie out, in my opinion. It comes out on MUBI, streaming on MUBI on Friday, August 21st. And then, along with that, he also has a review of the Bob Odenkirk, I believe it's a crime film or an action film. It's called Normal. It's currently streaming on HBO Max. He also messaged me and said he may do a discussion of Furious, episode 6. He's really loving that Hulu series right now. Don't know if you guys have seen that, but I've seen, I think, 4 episodes. I'm 4 episodes in, really enjoying that as well. So you'll get about several movies from Bruce and possibly Furious. If not, there's going to be some good stuff that Bruce will have up in the attic. So don't worry about that. I have one. For this episode, I only have one movie. It's a movie that I think... Yeah, it's a total gem because there's a couple reasons why I really enjoyed this family movie called The Magic Faraway Tree. All right, first off, it's a kids movie. Children's films are not usually my big cup of tea. I will maybe sometimes suffer through them or try to get through them, and sometimes I might actually like a few here and there. That said, The Magic Faraway Tree stands out for a couple of reasons. First off, Claire Foy and Andrew Garfield play the parents, and they are very believable actors, and they're wonderful as parents as well. Now, I'm going to read the official plot synopsis of The Magic Faraway Tree right now. Here we go. Quote, adapted from Enid Blyton's beloved classic novel, The Magic Faraway Tree, the film centers on Polly, played by Claire Foy, Tim, played by Andrew Garfield, and their 3 kids, a modern family forced to relocate to the remote English countryside. As they adapt to their new lives, the children discover a magical tree and its extraordinary and eccentric residents, including treasured characters like Moonface and Silky and Dame Washalot and Saucepan Man. And yes, a lot of really interesting characters. At the top of the tree, they are transported to spectacular, fantastical lands, and through the joys and challenges of their adventures, the family learns to reconnect and value each other for the first time in years. Directed by Ben Gregor, written by Simon Farnaby, and again, based on the novel of the same name by Enid Blyton. All right, this movie is about, it says it's rated PG, it's 110 minutes. Here's the first good thing about it. It's not a slog. Usually family movies, I want them to be 85, 90, 92, 93 minutes, and maybe I might like them, but this one, at 110 minutes, it still worked for me. I was not bored, had a good mixture of family stuff in the countryside as well as the fantastical stuff that goes on in The Magic Faraway Tree. No weaknesses really in this movie because since it's a family movie, there's going to be stuff that's really smoothed over. The Andrew Garfield character, Tim, the reason why he moves a family to the countryside is his wife, Polly, again, played by Claire Foy. She loses her job. They move from the big city, presumably I'm thinking London, and they go to the English countryside looking to follow their young dreams, maybe their college dreams. They always had this vision of raising their family outside the city, specifically in this countryside, all right? And possibly because of The Magic Faraway Tree. Not going to get into spoilers regarding that. But half of the movie deals with, at least the first half of the movie deals with the 3 kids. They're trying to adjust to the countryside because at the beginning, they're all in their iPads. The youngest kid, she's the reader of the family, so her head is buried in a book and she's listening to music. I think she has her earphones on. Bottom line is all the kids are tuning the parents off. they're not listening to their parents when they're living in that apartment or home in London. I think it was an apartment, but you can tell it's a modern day family where the kids are really addicted to their respective tablets and are tuning their parents. They're not listening to the folks. Now they move to the countryside. There's really, when they move into the home, it's just a complete mess. There's no Wi-Fi, no electricity. Everything's cobwebbed around. There's cobwebs everywhere. It looks like a piece of you-know-what, a POS. And the parents and the kids gradually, slowly but surely have to try to figure out how to live in this horrible, just junk of a place. And so that's the beginning. And the kids, of course, are really frustrated, especially the eldest daughter and the middle child. He's a son. He's a boy. The youngest girl, who really rarely speaks, on the way to the house, she encounters a fairy. And from that moment on, she's the first person to become introduced to the different inhabitants of the Magic Faraway Tree. A lot of the movie deals with how the young girl and then eventually her siblings have all these different adventures with these eccentric characters, like the guy with the saucepan. There's a guy with just saucepans as his uniform, and it's pretty funny. There's that guy, the aforementioned guy, Moonface, played by Nonso Anozie. Nonso Anozie, very memorable in this movie. And Moonface, he is just this big guy, and he has, I think, a white mustache, and he claims that he's the wisest and smartest person in the lands. He knows everything. He's a know-it-all, but deep down inside, he doesn't really want to be bothered by the kids, but maybe he might have a little bit of a heart of gold amidst all of that pessimism there. There's also Silky, played by Nicola Coughlan, and she is the one who initially is the friendliest out of all. She really wants to be a fairy, a small fairy. That's one of her biggest wishes, but she is not. She's not a pint-sized fairy. She looks like almost in human form, but Silky strikes up a friendship with the youngest girl and then ultimately strikes a friendship with the rest of the kids. And then eventually what happens is the kids go on these different adventures of different worlds within the universe of the Magic Faraway Tree. And each of these excursions and diversions are fun to watch. And because the actual family drama is Tim, played by Andrew Garfield, the dad, is trying to make tomato sauce. That's his long-term dream, is to make tomato sauce in the countryside, maybe market them and pay. Well, the place that they got for the summer is very cheap to rent, but they ultimately want to not just make rent, they want to make even more money and maybe make a career. Maybe Tim might become a real life entrepreneur tomato sauce maker. And then his wife, Polly, again played by Claire Foy, she used to be an executive, I'm assuming high-powered, very intelligent executive. She uses her wits and intellect to help Tim in his dream of becoming that sauce maker. With the kids and their adventures in the Faraway Tree, however, there's a lot of magical stuff that happens, and sometimes those fantastical situations bleed into reality, and maybe it might adversely or positively affect their real world. So you'll see a little bit more of that intermingling of the fantasy, or those people living, those inhabitants of the Magic Faraway Tree. They may mix in with the real people within this countryside. That's another option as well. I like the adventures. The kids were good. Claire Foy, Andrew Garfield, I'll see them in anything, and they're both believable. And especially Andrew Garfield, he has more of a layered role because a lot of it is his story. So there are moments where, and there is a very interesting moment where I almost got teary-eyed watching an Andrew Garfield scene, and there are a couple of potential moments where you, dear listener, might get teary-eyed over certain moments of the Magic Faraway Tree. And I like the theme about it's an oft-used tale about how adults lose their sense of imagination once they become adults, and they lose their childhood innocence or the dreams of their youth. We've seen this before, But the great thing, I think the knockout punch for the Magic Faraway Tree is the knockout punch is a very subtle punch. And the ending of the Magic Faraway Tree to me, and I'll talk about it in the spoilers on our CinemAddicts YouTube channel maybe after this weekend, after the movie's been released for a couple of days. There is a really subtle thing that happens at the end which pushes this movie for me. I'm giving the Magic Faraway Tree 4 stars. And one of the reasons why it's not a 3.5 star, like, hey, just watch it, it's recommend. There is a chef's kiss moment at the end of this movie. I don't know if it was originally in the book, but I thought it was really well done. Meaning, it's not a completely cornball, cheesy, saccharine type of family tale, which, though predictable, I really enjoyed that it ended on a very graceful, beautiful note that I think probably a lot of people will miss, but I just thought it was really beautifully rendered. And although a lot of the stuff is predictable and you see where the beats are going to go and some of their adventures, yeah, they're, I guess, intentionally wacky and some may deem it corny. I was fine with it. And the fact that I was not bored 1 minute of the Magic Faraway Tree is also a huge selling point. Another thing is I can watch this movie on and on. I just enjoyed it. And this weekend, hopefully I'll get to see it with my niece. She was over at the house today. We were only able to see, she was only able to see about 15 minutes of it. And hopefully this weekend, when we spend some more quality time together, she'll be able to watch the entire film. Highly recommended if you're a parent or if you're an uncle or aunt or you have kids or you want to take kids to see a family movie that you as an adult might enjoy as well. Yeah, give the Magic Faraway Tree a shot and would love to hear your comments and your thoughts on this movie as well. So please hit us up and tell me what you think, if you think the ending was worth it, if the movie was worth it for you. Again, The Magic Faraway Tree hits theaters Friday, August 21st, 2026. That is it for my review. I am done for this week for CinemAddicts as far as the movies I reviewed. Yeah, I think I'm going to pick The Magic Faraway Tree as my CinemAddicts gem of the week. I haven't done this whole gem thing, but I think maybe moving forward, me, Bruce, and Eric maybe starting in September, we'll each have a gem of the week, gem pick of the week. Yeah, but this would be my movie pick of the week, The Magic Faraway Tree, 4 out of 5 stars. Please check this out. Really wonderful film. I'm going to stop blabbing now because Bruce Purkey is up in the attic. He has some movies and possibly Furious to get to. We'll see. Here's Bruce Purkey over at the CinemAttic.
Welcome to the CinemAttic, the attic of cinema. Once again, crawling down from the attic on a rickety ladder, barely nourished by the kibbles and bits that Eric throws up to me every week. And I am bringing you a few new screeners for this week to talk about and hopefully check out one way or another. I've got a documentary called Learning to Fly. I've got actual MUBI release, which I believe is coming out on the MUBI streaming platform, called Rosebush Pruning. I've got a little to recommend that's just come to streaming recently called Normal. If you may have heard of it, I barely remembered hearing of it, so it was like a pleasant surprise. And then I'm going to give you a quick touch base on the ongoing series Furious, which I did mention a little more fully last week. All right, let's get into this. The documentary I have here for you is Learning to Fly. It's by Max Lowe, and it really focuses on a couple people. Aisha McAdams, who is a photographer, mostly known for photographing extreme long-distance trail runners. I'm make sure I got the right ultrathon runners. That's what the official terminology for them is. Ultramarathon. And also, it focuses on some of those runners, specifically, mostly on Jim Walmsley. Also, there is a bit on Esther Zillag. Hard to say her name. It's Sillag. So it's like a Swedish name or Nordic or something. So it's a little hard for my brain to quite understand it. Okay, so what is this documentary? Once again, it's about ultramarathon runners. And by focusing on a dual focus, like I said, on the runners themselves and these marathons and what's going on there, as well as this photographer and her life and what led her to photograph these runners, because she had a history in her youth of being a marathon runner. She never really did the ultra marathons, but a marathon runner, and how running was a respite for her and a way for her to escape and find her own meaning in her life. And she had rough things going on in her family. It gave her a way out of that. Now, the basic thing you need to understand, there's a couple basic events that it covers here. One is the Western States 100. So these ultramarathons tend to be about 100 miles long. If they're kilometers, then they change it up a little bit, but about 100 miles long for these really big ones. So obviously the average marathon is 26 miles, which knocks down most people. So 4 times more than that. And then on top of that, these ultramarathons tend to be on trails. They're not on like just flat roadways. They tend to be on trails. They tend to have huge amounts of elevation change, like going over mountain passes and things. So not only are they running on a really rough surface, but they're even giving that extra strenuousness of having to go over mountain passes. So the one race that we're talking about is the Western States 100. And then the other one is the UTMB. And I forgot to write down what UTMB stood for, but it's over in Switzerland or France. Actually, I take it back. It's in the Alps, basically. I think the French Alps. So it's like the Tour de France of foot racing, but it's just all in one event. It's nonstop. It takes hours and hours, starts at night and ends in the daytime, that kind of thing. Now, the reason it follows those 2 events, because there are more than those events in the world, those 2 events occur about a month apart. And they're following Walmsley, that one runner, because he's the premier, he's sort of the, I don't know who would be the equivalent, Michael Jordan of ultramarathon runners for Americans. But one thing he's never done is he's never done those 2 in a row, because usually the recovery time is so long between one of these races that you need 3 or 4 months before you do another one to successfully do it. And they're trying again to see if he can do these 2 and win them both, one in a row. And of course, as you might suspect, he does win the Western, but a big part of the question is he going to win the second one, less than a month later, or about a month later. And like I said, in this movie also, the director of the movie, like I said, Max Lowe, is not the photographer. So you have this double focus. You're watching the photographer, you're watching the runners. And this is, to me, a pretty interesting documentary. I can see some finding it dull. Like, it isn't as stressful as something like Free Solo, another extreme sport where someone's health and life is at risk every time they do their sport. But at least I can respect this a little bit more. They both are sports where, like I said, you're really physically putting yourself in danger. Whereas in Free Solo, I think the skill is the same. The ability to climb up the rock is not improved by being Free Solo. It's just the ability to survive doing it. Because if you have no safety equipment and you slip, you will die in Free Solo. Well, I don't respect that at all. I think that's more of a gimmick and a look at me sort of a sport. Whereas this one still has elements of that, because they talk about how when a lot of these runners finish one of these ultramarathons, they physically have all the characteristics of a person in the ICU, like their blood sugar levels and all the stuff in their system is like shutting down. So it is very dangerous in that aspect. But at least, compared to Free Solo, at least it's a sport where the act of doing it is a differentiation from the other acts around it. Like, there isn't another version of running that's long that doesn't cause that. There's not one where they can use, like, say, extra special shoes that would not allow them to be hurt as much, but they can still do the race. No, which is the equivalent of like Free Solo. They just have to have safety equipment. They can still do the climb. Anyway, so I can expect it a little more on that level, but also it is a little bit, it like Free Solo, it brings unusual personalities to the table. They talk about Walmsley a lot and how he's very much a misanthrope, and he's found his people. He's found his way to be a communicative member of a small sort of a microcosmic society, because when he's with people who do these sort of ultramarathons, they have a common context in which they can share, and he can become a part of a world. And it seems like outside of that world, with him and his girlfriend, there's probably about nothing else that he really can relate to on a normal level. He's definitely got those, like I said, once again, a very insular sort of personality. Like I said, on the other hand, Aisha, she ends up becoming the biggest focus. We follow a bunch of different runners, but it's really the personality of Aisha who we come in thinking is just a photographer and why she's interested in being a photographer. And then, like I said before, discovering what really drives her to follow these runners and how it's been formed by her life as a former life as a runner, and also just the way that, like, emotionally she's dealt with her life. And I think that is the real true heart of the story, and actually becomes the heart of the story in the final third. And I really appreciated that. I thought it was going to be first race, second race, will Walmsley do it? And there's definitely an element of that, but I would say about half of the movie, the middle portion and definitely the last portion, is much more about Aisha and just following the progression of her life and how it is related to running and what running does for her in that world. So in that aspect, I really quite enjoyed it. I would say also I really enjoyed especially the footage around the first Western States race, because I used to live near Lake Tahoe, and there's a bunch of stuff in the Tahoe area around there. When I was a little kid, I used to live near Lake Tahoe, so just the scenery and the vibes of that whole area gave me a lot of nostalgia. So for me, it was a personal connection there. If you like beautiful outdoor scenery and just amazing vistas, and imagine people running 100 miles through it, then you're going to get a lot out of that. If that doesn't do anything for you, you're going to be, well, I don't really care. There's a little bit of competition there, but not that much. It's mostly just human personalities here. So I think for some people it might be very dull or bordering on dull. For me, I would say it's good, not quite to great, because I think there could have been even more to it. Like, I feel like we could have sat with a few more runners and really got to know them more. We only barely touched on a couple other runners, and really mostly was just with Walmsley. And I wanted that variety to see the different personalities a little more in full color. All that being said, I'm going to recommend it at 3.5 stars. Once again, it depends on where you sit with documentaries. But as far as sports or extreme sports documentaries go, I think this one definitely has a lot more life and personality to it than something like, to me, like Free Solo, which people love Free Solo. I do not love Free Solo. So I guess if you love Free Solo, you probably won't like this as much. If you don't love Free Solo like myself, this might be a way to enter into that sort of world in a way that you can connect with a little bit more. So 3.5 stars for Learning to Fly. Okay, next up, I've got Rosebush Pruning, which I know both Eric and Greg have reviewed now. I think they went into a few details, and I might do a few spoilers as well. But first, just going to give you, it's directed by Karim Anouz. It's about the best I can say that name. It is a stacked cast. You've got Callum Turner, Elle Fanning, Jamie Bell, Riley Keough, Lucas Gage, Pamela Anderson, Tracy Letts. I mean, that's almost everybody. But that's a lot of cast members. You might think to yourself, like, whoa, how is there this movie with all these people in it? I never even really heard of it. It sounds like it got a very limited, maybe a festival run, and now it's going on to MUBI streaming service. And once again, before I say anything about this movie, because I'll just preview it, I didn't like it very much. I do love the MUBI streaming service, and I think MUBI is probably, to me, if you're looking at the elite sort of art house streaming services, the ones you probably think of most are Criterion and then maybe MUBI. And I think to me, MUBI is more interesting overall. Once again, I think I mentioned it before, Criterion's your dad's art house movie service, and MUBI's the wild indie artist living in a loft in the seedy edge of town movie service, where they're going to still find the art house stuff, but they're going to find the stuff that's more fringe and a little more on the edges and a little more daring. And this movie, it does fit those categories, but it doesn't always hit. So I don't want to feel like an a-hole, which I can definitely do that. But I still quite respect MUBI, but this one doesn't do it for me. Now, what is this movie? You basically have, I was listening to Greg and Eric talk about it, and I'll try to give you my own little spin on it. It's definitely in this sub-genre of Eat the Rich movies like Saltburn, and we've had a bunch of them lately, maybe like the Knives Out movies. Anything where there's a whole group of all unlikable, super rich, bored, backstabbing sort of characters all pushed together. Now, I originally liked Saltburn. I think I gave it like 3 or 4 stars when I originally rated it, but it's definitely dropped in my opinion over time. It's such an edgelordy sort of movie. This movie is even more so that. I think what I was thinking about, why do some of these movies work for me and why do some of them not? I feel like you have to have some sort of an outsider character or an everyday normie sort of a character as a audience proxy or something to wander through these worlds or be intruded into one of these worlds in order to have something to latch onto. Because if you're just seeing these terrible people be terrible to each other, there's a lack of interest a lot of times to me. This movie is definitely in that category. Like Saltburn, even though I in hindsight, I don't think it works very well, it does have this character that's the outsider that's wandering through this world. And it ends up being a little different than that, which I think is to its detriment. If it stayed as a true outsider in that world, it would have been more, I don't know, more affecting. Either way, this movie basically follows a family. Tracy Letts' character is the father, Pamela Anderson's the mother, and they have those 4 kids. And you have one of the kids, I would believe it's the Aiden character, if I remember correctly. Edward, sorry. The Edward character played by Callum Turner. He's your narrator as well. So you get the feeling he's going to be your main subject. But then he keeps telling you that the Jamie Bell character, Jack, is like he's the only likable brother, only likable sibling. He's the only one that has like morality, I guess. Everyone else just cares about music and fashion and backstabbing each other. All rich layabouts just living on the money of the parents. One parent is dead, and that is Pamela Anderson's character. She's gone. She was, we're going to get to spoilers here in a minute, but first of all, the one terrible character telling you the other terrible character is the good one is weird. So you have to know out of the gate that it's levels of badness, I guess, but they all seem pretty bad to me. And I wondered to myself, like, first of all, it's one of those, what is the point of this? And as I was watching it, I also thought, you know what this seems like? It seems like almost like a modern version of Roman emperor stories, right? Like one of those stories where you have the crazy Caligula-like cruel, perverse emperor, and then all of the incestuous, like, family members hooking up and backstabbing each other to get the power. It feels like that, but in this modern Spanish setting, American expats in Spain, all living in some fancy house doing this weird stuff. Now, plot-wise, I'm going to get into spoilers here in a minute. Let's just tell you, I'm a 1 star in this movie. Now, why would I go so low? It doesn't sound like I hate it that much. I have other things I rate higher that I like less, but it's partly because of the great competence. You've got a really good-looking, beautiful cinematography, solid music, stacked cast, great actors, and to give them this knocks it down further to me. So that's why I'm 1 star in this. This should be at minimum a 3-star movie and should be a great movie with all of the things it's got going for it. And instead it's just insufferable. And even at 90 minutes, I was like, can I fast forward this? Because I'm really getting bored. It's really annoying because it really wants to shock me. It's a very, once again, edgelordy sort of movie where it's really trying to like, ooh, did you see that? Isn't that crazy what I did there? It's a lot of that stuff. And I can go for those movies. I can love a great like David Lynch movie, which arguably is way more WTF and trying to freak you out. But it's all about how you do it and what your style is and what is it getting at. Whereas, so specifics, we're going to get into some spoilers here. So if you've heard enough and you're interested, go check it out. It does have a lot of shocking, quote unquote, shocking moments, a lot of sexual moments, a lot of gross out moments. So if that kind of entices you, give it a try, but be warned, it sucks. And not just because it's doing those things. I don't care. So anyway, that's all I got to say. I'm a 1 star in this. I do not like this movie at all. You be your own judge, but I'm not going to give it credit because it looks good and the actors are good. No, it gets less credit for that. It should be better because of that. It means it has all the beautiful paints, the best brushes, the best lighting, the best canvases in the world, and it still painted a terrible picture. That makes it even less good. Like you had all those things and you couldn't even make a good picture? No, you couldn't. All right, moving on. Normal. This is a great palate cleanser for me. Normal is directed by Ben Wheatley. Man, Ben Wheatley is an up and down director. He did The Great Kill List. He's done a few other movies, English Field or whatever it's called, where they're all tripping out and have psychedelics in this like medieval English field, which isn't great, but it's interesting at least. Kill Shot, I believe. No, Kill List, and then did another one. He did another one about shooting. But he's also made some just really forgettable, weird studio pictures. And this picture, for a lot of people, is a forgettable studio picture. But it's also just a broadly entertaining meat and potato sort of picture. Now, I think part of the problem is it's named Normal and stars Bob Odenkirk as kind of an action guy. And he just made the two, I can't remember the names of them now, the two other movies that sound like Normal. It's like the same name almost. So I think that doesn't help. And those other movies were like John Wick, like it was like Ned Flanders is actually John Wick secretly. So this movie looks like it's going to be that, but it's a little different than that. So in this case, he plays, what is it, Ulysses, I think is his name. Yeah, Bob Odenkirk's Ulysses. You also have Lena Headey in here in a small role. You've got Henry Winkler in a small role. You got a bunch of character actors you probably recognize but don't know their names. I did not list them all here. Basic concept is he's an interim police officer in Normal, this little town in, I want to say, was it Wisconsin or Minnesota? I've always confused the two. Either way, up there, he's just this interim, almost a Marge Gunderson sort of character, but not quite as aw shucksy in the accents or anything. And he's there. He's a calming presence. The previous sheriff has died. He's hanging out till they get another sheriff elected, and then he's going on his way. And all you know is that at the beginning of the movie, you see this little pre-normal sequence where you find out there's some Japanese Yakuza influence on the small town. You don't know what it is, but they have some effect there. And then you spend probably the first 45 minutes of this movie just hanging out with Ulysses, the Bob Odenkirk character, as he meets the people in town and gets to know them, and they get to know he's just a no-nonsense, hey, let's calm things down, let's come up with a solution sort of a sheriff. He's not going to be fighting and really pushing things. He just wants to make the problems go away. And a lot of the beginning 45, almost hour of this movie is just him meeting the different characters in town and us meeting the different characters and getting to know their idiosyncratic understanding who all these different characters are, which is really great. I mean, it's a setup for us to learn all these characters so that when things go sideways, you know who they all are. But it also works really well because, to me, this is almost the strongest portion of the movie. Once it gets into the action, it's fine, it's decent. But all the character stuff, I really enjoy just watching him just interact with the little small town politics and the different weirdo characters. And the one thing that's fun is every place he goes, he'll go to the yarn shop. And there'll be something a little odd in every place he goes. He goes to the yarn shop and they have a police scanner. He goes to the hardware store and they have a weird locked room. So every place he goes, something's mysterious. The previous sheriff died of a heart attack in the snow, but something's off about that too. Something doesn't seem quite right. Everybody's a little friendly, but also a little bit strange. It's definitely in that subgenre. It's a crossover subgenre between meat and potatoes, Hollywood action movie, and stranger in a weirdo town where everyone seems suspicious movie. There's a bunch of those, Wicker Man and a whole bunch. I love those movies. I'm a sucker for those movies. Dead and Buried is another one I love in the 80s. I love movies where someone goes to a town and it seems everything's off and you have to figure out what's going on really and why is everyone being so strange to me when I came to this town, that movie. And this has that, a lot of that. And then eventually things will kick off. Things will go fully sideways, and then it goes into full action mode. And once again, I do appreciate how in this one, and it's bugging me that I can't remember the name of the other movie that he had. I don't remember why it was. And I keep wanting to say Normal, and it's not Normal. And I know everyone out there's yelling at the screen telling me what it was, but I can't remember it. Whatever. And the other movie, like I said, the secret is basically like, oh my gosh, he's a kick-ass super spy, basically. Here, that is not the secret at all. It's just the secret is what is actually going on in this town. So he has no superpowers here. He's a good fighter, but his fighting abilities most of the time here are somewhat limited and almost accidental. There's a lot of great stuff in here where someone will be attacking him and he'll be doing his best to fight them off and to kill them. And sometimes he's successful, but a lot of times the people are successful in killing themselves in some weird way. He's still proficient with weapons in the way that a police officer you would think would be. But like I said, he's not super powered. And half the time the other people are accidentally shooting somebody else by mistake or killing somebody or killing themselves because they trip and something happens. So he isn't 100% successful about things. That gives it a little element of fun too, I think. Once again, not a blow your socks off movie. It's not going to be like, why did I never see this movie? But you might go into it and be like, I don't think much about this movie. It's just more of the same of what the other movie was. But you'll be like maybe pleasantly surprised like I was, where it's like, oh, you know what? This is its own thing a little bit. I like this. Some people might even like this more than the other movies. Although the first one I really liked. This one isn't as good as that, but it's very decent, very solid action movie. I'm not really an action movie fan, but this gave me enough interesting character stuff and that secret Odenkirk sauce that made it enjoyable to me. So I'm going to go 3.5 stars for normal. And Nobody. It came to me finally. Nobody is the name of the other movie. You can finally stop yelling at me and writing the email. Anyway, yeah, this is, if you've seen Nobody and you really like it and you want a little more of that energy, but a different twist on it, I think you could do a lot worse than this. And I think the complaint, like, wow, he's just making the same movie again. It's like, well, okay. Who can you not say that about? Stallone? Schwarzenegger? I mean, they're all action movies where they're the same characters, but some of them are really good. Multiple different types are really good. So why can't we have two similar, but not really similar, decent movies with action with Bob Odenkirk? I'm behind that. Keep it coming. Liam Neeson has made a whole second career out of that. So I am not against it. Normal is decent in my book. 3.5 stars. Okay. Last thing I've got for you today is we're going to return to Furious. Now, I mentioned last week the series Furious. I think it was up to 5 episodes at that point. And I haven't gone into like a lot of detail in the episodes, and I don't know if I will this time either. It's just so much fun to uncover the weird twists and turns it takes. Now, I know Joseph Bridges has been watching it and enjoying it, but also thinks it's silly and ridiculous because of its big tonal swings. I love what it's doing there, and I think it's, I don't know, I think it's better definitely than he does. I think it's doing something really interesting. And once again, episode 6, what I will mention about episode 6 is there's the 2 main characters that you got here in Lucy and, well, the name keeps changing. Let's just say Lucy, and then there's the woman who is killer / teenage abuse at the hands of an Epstein-like cabal. And that is the very, to me, interesting interplay in this series. And what it does is it's basically going, let's take this really well-worn, tropey sort of setup of the police procedural serial killer movie or series, and let's drop it into this sort of current day Epstein-like world, but take it pretty seriously and really take seriously the effects of abuse on characters, both in our main police officer character and just how she continues to be in a system that she can't control, mostly run by men, and continues to suffer the effects in her daily and work life of this abuse that she experienced, as well as continues to experience in some way or another, how it's just really broken her. And then you're seeing the same thing from the point of view of the killer, which is constantly putting into question is, as a viewer, like, are you supposed to think the killer is justified? Or is it more one of those things that's more of a realistic view in some ways, unrealistic story in a realistic view, though, of a person who had such serious abuse and was so broken that they're a combination person. They're a person who isn't necessarily abusing in the same way, but is definitely hurting people, killing people, doing all these things. She is damaging people, but she's also righteously angry and righteously wants retribution on these people that hurt her so badly. So you got this double-edged sword. You can understand what she needs to do, but the way she's doing it is what's terrible. And that's what is the main tension of the story. Now, what makes episode 6 so special is, once again, without getting into huge spoilers, our 2 main characters come in direct contact with each other and spend time almost the whole episode together for a certain reason. And the cat and mouse between the 2 characters, a lot of it in dialogue, is fantastic. And then meanwhile, you've got another character, Alden, which I did not mention. I'm going to mention Alden really quick. Alden is played by Steve Way, Alden has become a standout character in this whole show. He earlier on was introduced as one of the men in the killer's life, and one of the few men that she didn't just eventually kill, and one of the men that she seemed to actually respect and care for. Part of it was because he has extreme disability, just really locked into his chair, very atrophied. The actor actually is, you can tell it's not like them pretending to be that. It's that the actor actually is suffering from whatever they're suffering from. I don't know if it's cystic fibrosis or one of these really terrible, debilitating, like I said, degenerative conditions. And the actor really runs with it and gives it both pathos and a ton of humor as well. And it's really interesting because at first you're like, why would she care about this guy and why would they be brought together? And you slowly start to understand, like, well, he's one of the few people that really truly doesn't judge her because he understands that he is so desperate for love himself that he can unconditionally love her. And the fact that she can give him back love because she trusts him, he's somebody who she knows will not go against her, that it becomes a really interesting and really unusual pairing. And you start to really be concerned for him because there's points where every guy in her life at some point, she is going to murder and kill because they all have used her in some way. But this guy is different. And in the 6th episode, let's just say there's some interactions between him and the police that are just straight up broad comedy. Now, I think Joseph was bothered by that, but I really loved it. There's some great stuff there. My wife, who is mostly chair-bound herself through multiple sclerosis, she really appreciated the humor there too, because it was a really like anger and humor combination of a person who lives in a ableist world at all times, and the people around them just don't even understand how ableist they're being. The way that's played out here is very hilarious, and how the person's actually using their disability also to just manipulate the police. And it's fantastic and so funny. There's, I don't want to describe it. There's just some standout moments in episode 6. And it just shows you both the whiplash sort of tone that you get in this series. Once again, you might find it silly. It definitely won't work for most people, but it's definitely not the usual you see in these sort of shows. You see a show with this dark subject matter around a serial killer and child sexual abuse. There's no way they're going to have probably half the episode be broadly comic, nearly slapstick sort of sequences, and then whiplash into these like really hard, emotionally abusive, distressed sort of coping that's been going on, and cat and mouse games between killer and cop, and they're all in the same abuse cycle. So it's like just this really weird up and down, which I think makes this a truly special and interesting series. And the performances are just fantastic. So I'm still 4.5 to 5 stars in the series. I think it's got 2 episodes left. Hopefully it lives up to the level it's been at now. And once again, I don't think it's a series where a lot of our favorite characters are going to make it out alive, because this is not the show that looks like it's going to basically give everyone plot armor and let them out. So I would not be surprised if 1 or 2 of our main characters are done by the end of this series. We'll see. I could be wrong. Maybe it'll go flat at the end. It very well could, but so far what we've got is fantastic. All right, that's all I got for this week. Thanks, everybody. Once again, don't forget, we do have our movie club going on every week still. Recently we did Once. We did First Reformed. I did not rewatch First Reformed. I'd seen it pretty recently, and it's a 4.5, 5-star movie for me, so I let everyone else enjoy the review on that. Once I still haven't watched, so I'm going to catch up on Once whenever I can get a chance. I keep going forward with so many movies, it's hard to catch them all. And this week we've got A Little Prayer, directed or suggested by Angie Clark. We'll talk about that this Friday. Probably by the time you hear this, we will be discussing it. So if you want to join in, check out the CinemAddicts Movie Club group. And every week we suggest new movies to watch, and you can play along and chime in. All right, I'm out now. We miss you, Mitch. We miss you, William. We're thinking about you, Brian. I'm going to keep adding to the list. we're thinking about you, Brian. Hopefully you won't be added to this list. We're going to hope that things really turn around for you. I know it's been rough. And once again, there is a GoFundMe out there. You can go to the CinemAddicts website, or you can go to a Film Vault website, and there'll be more information about how to help out Brian and his family. And once again, on the way out, I will say F-ICE still stands, still true. Hopefully that will stop being true soon, and I can just take that off of the closing. Talk to you later.